Homework number 1. Let's go through the basic concepts. So at this point, I should have taught you, or you should have gone through the predictive method, the basic concepts. So just to review, step 1 is to mark down your direct reference questions. Remember, direct reference questions are questions that come as a set of 2. And basically, the first question is going to ask some random detail in the passage. The second question is going to ask you to provide evidence for the answer to the previous question. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for the line numbers. I'm not reading any questions. I'm looking for the line numbers. I'm looking for answer choices with line numbers like number 9, like number 7. You guys see that? Now, just to be clear, which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? So 8 and 9 is a set of 2. So is 6 and 7, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mark up the passage. What do I mean by that? I'm going to go to lines 20 to 21. I'm going to start with number 7. So I'm going to go to 2021. I'm going to literally put a marking right there. See that? I'm going to do the same thing for every single line. 21 to 24. Okay. 25 to 28. Yeah, it does take a couple seconds. Okay, it takes like 15, 20 seconds. 41 to 43. Do it for everything. Now, you'll notice one question I do on the left-hand side, the other question I do on the right-hand side. The reason why I do that is because I don't want to get confused between the different questions, right? It's just unnecessary, right? 16 to 19, I'm going to keep going. That's right here. And it doesn't have to be perfect, guys. It's just supposed to be around there. 21 to 24. You'll notice that this one actually overlaps. And finally, I got 32 to 33. Now, that being said, okay, now what I'm going to do is my direct reference questions are marked down. Step 1, check. Step 2, I'm going to read the blurb and classify the text. Now, I don't technically have to read the blurb to classify the text. The blurb is this little portion right here. I'll read it anyway. I always read it. The passage is excerpted from Miguel de Cervantes' Don Quixote, originally published in 1605 and translated by John Ormsby in 1885. Okay. This unfortunately tells me nothing. But it is what it is. I have to read it because sometimes it can tell me everything. So be careful when it comes to these passages. That being said, let's continue into this. But I read the blurb and classify the text. This is questions 1 through 10. I already know what the classifications are going to be like because the passages always repeat. The first passage is always a narrative. And narrative passages always involve characters. That means every question, every answer choice will involve characters. I cannot emphasize that enough. Characters, characters, characters means everything, and the only thing that's important about characters, even if the question is about setting, it's going to involve some kind of character in one way or another. Be careful when it comes to this, please. That being said, let's get hardcore into this. So I am now going to, step 2 is done. It's classification, it's narrative. I can write that down here. I really don't. Okay, I think it's kind of a waste of time. You should already know what the passage is going to be like. And if you don't, go back and review. Well, we got a narrative. Now I'm going to do step 1 done. That's direct reference questions. Step 2, classify the passage. This is a narrative, not a problem. And step 3, I'm going to read, annotate, and answer. Now remember, what am I annotating? I'm annotating things that I think are going to be questions. In other words, I'm going to literally sit here and think about potential questions that could possibly happen. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do anything else here. I'm going to think about the questions here. I'm not going to write down what's important. That's unnecessary. I'm going to think about what questions they could ask. That's the only thing that matters. And what kind of questions they're going to ask? Well, they're going to ask me about characters because it's a narrative. So it's just that simple. They can ask me about specific word choice. And you'll see how I rip through these passages and really break them down to get a good understanding of what can they ask. And the better I understand this, the better questions I come up with, I should say, well, the more likely I am to score perfect. That's just the way that this process goes. So I'm going to read, annotate, answer. I'm specifically answering my direct reference questions, and you'll see exactly how I do that. So let's get into this. At this point, they came in sight of 30 or 40 windmills that are on the plain. Okay, we're finding some windmills. I don't know. I have no clue what's going on. So let's just keep reading. Fortune, said Don Quixote to his squire, as soon as he had seen them, is arranging matters for us better than we could have hoped. Look there, friend Sancho Panza. Okay, so I got Don Quixote, Don, speaking to Sancho. Okay, And he's pointing at the windmills and saying, we're really fortunate. I don't know why. I don't really know what the character relationship is here, but I'm just giving you the context of what's going on so far. So, where am I? Look there, friend Sancho Panza, where 30 or more monstrous giants rise up, all of whom I mean to engage in battle and slay, and with whose spoils we shall begin to make our fortunes. Okay. So, Don Quixote, whatever, is looking at a bunch of windmills. But then he's calling them monsters? Weird. I still don't know. Are they monsters or are they windmills? I have no clue what's going on. Let's just keep going so far, because I don't really have any understanding of characters, and that's really the main question here. For this righteous warfare and its God's good service to sweep so evil a breed from off the face of the earth. Okay, whatever. Let's keep going. What giants, said Sancho Panza. Okay, so it looks like Sancho's on our side, right? So Don Quixote sees a bunch of giants, or windmills. I can't really tell here. And Sancho's like, what are you talking about? And that's kind of how I feel. Like, what is he talking about? Okay, so I still don't see any questions so far. Let's just keep going. Those you see there, answered his master, with the, I know the relationship. Okay, so who is Sancho to Don Quixote? Sancho is his servant, right? So what can I say? What's the relationship, right? That's a potential question. What's the relationship between the two? Relationship, right? Servant, master, something like that. Okay, you can write that into the margins. You can put that on the side. Doesn't really matter. You can put it on a piece of scrap paper. I'm just writing it in here, or you can just think about it. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you're thinking questions. Make sure you're predicting. That's the whole point of the strategy. Those you see there, answered his master, with the long arms, and some have them nearly 2 leagues long. Okay, this is a direct reference. This is one of the markings. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to really think about what kind of potential questions here, but because it's pretty straightforward, right? He's just pointing at windmills, which are monsters or windmills. I don't know who's crazy here. Is it Don Quixote or Sancho? I would assume it's Don Quixote because the narrator flat out says that those are 30 or 40 windmills. So I'm guessing they're not really monsters, and it would make more sense that, Sancho is the sane one and Don Quixote is crazy because Sancho's like, those are just windmills, dude. What are you doing? Anyway, let's go to the direct reference question. This is a direct reference. This is the second one. I think it was like 8 and 9. Yep. So I'm going to see if those lines, if lines 13 to 15 that I just read, do they answer this question? That's the real question. Now, if you also notice, the questions always go in order. So 8 and 9 should be later on. Should be. Not always, but they should be. But that being said, let's see. So the passage indicates that Don Quixote does not believe Sancho's description of the giants. Line 17, because what? Well, we don't know why he doesn't believe in the description, right? He does not believe the description. It doesn't say that he doesn't believe it, right? This is just giving me Don Quixote's description of the giants. So the answer I don't have the answer for number 8. Which means 13 to 15 didn't give me that answer, which means I can cross it out and not have to read it again. So you have to understand exactly how I'm doing this. Now I'm going to keep going. 16 to 19 is another one, so I'm going to keep reading. Look, your worship, said Sancho, what we see there are not giants but windmills, and what seem to be their arms are the vanes that turned by the wind make the millstone go. Oh, that kind of works, right? He's basically explaining like, okay, those are not giants. Those just freaking windmills. Okay, it is what it is. Let's see if I have the answer for number 8. Sancho's eyesight is not as good. Okay, no. Okay, Don does not believe. Oh, hold on. So you have to be careful with this question. It says Don does not believe Sancho's description. So now we finally actually get Sancho's description. We don't know why Don doesn't believe in Sancho's description. We just know that what Sancho's description actually is. So I don't think that 16 to 19 is an answer either because it doesn't really match. But let's see. Don Quixote claims Sancho's not as brave. Doesn't say that. Don Quixote knows more about Fristone's. We don't know anything about Friston. Don Quixote believes Sancho's too busy. we don't know anything here so far. Okay, so this is playing along with our original theory that 8 and 9 is probably going to be later on. But let's keep going. It is easy to see, replied Don Quixote, that you are not used to this business of adventures. Okay, that's another direct reference. That's the other one. So I'm going to see if I can answer that one as well. You can see how I'm going back and forth, back and forth. The passage indicates that Sancho views Don Quixote as a boss. We don't actually know how Sancho views Don Quixote. Because right now I'm thinking he's going to view him as totally and utterly crazy, but I don't see that here so far, right? All that Don Quixote is saying to Sancho is, you're not used to this adventure, okay? That's how Don Quixote views Sancho, not the other way around. So let's keep going. Those are giants, and if you are afraid, away with you out of here and betake yourself to prayer while I engage them in fierce and unequal combat. Okay, so this is a direct explanation of how Don Quixote views Sancho as a coward, somebody who just sits there and prays, right? That's what he says. Sits there and prays and doesn't actually get himself involved in these types of adventures. So that's actually a set of two direct reference questions. So I'm going to try to answer it in both ways. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the right answer for both, but we'll see. So 6, the passage indicates Sancho views Don Quixote as a coward, definitely. Pious man who requires help, no skillful leader, no superior. We don't know how Sancho views Quixote. We know how Quixote views Sancho, though. So 8, the passage indicates, so I'm going to say no for 21 to 24, right? Now let's go to 8. The passage indicates that Don Quixote does not believe Sancho's description of the giants. So Don Quixote doesn't believe this because he's just saying that he's not as brave, which is B. And therefore, my answer was directly stated in 21 to 24 that he's a coward, right? So that answers the question right there. And it's cool because I got 2 questions done, and I'm not even really done reading the passage. So that's the idea behind direct reference. Let's do number 6 and 7. So engage in fierce and equal combat. So saying he gave the spur to his steed, Rocinante. Steed is a horse. Heedless of the cries his squire Sancho sent after him, warning him that most certainly they were windmills and not giants he was going to attack. Okay, well, let's put it one more time. So he's saying he gave the spur to his steed Rocinante, heedless of the cries his squire sent after him, warning him the most... Okay, so Sancho was warning Don Quixote, and basically he's like, please, 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 like almost begging him, right? Crying out, please don't do this, you're just going to get hurt. You can't attack a bunch of windmills. It doesn't make any sense. So Sancho's actually viewing Don Quixote, and this gives us a good idea that, right, because if you keep reading, it says, he, however, was so positive that were giants, he neither heard the cries of Sancho nor perceived, near as he was what they were. So this is flat out telling me that, okay, Sancho is viewing Don Quixote as somebody who needs to be looked after. So that being said... I think the passage indicates that Sancho views Don Quixote as a boss who endangers his... He's not... No. He's not... Don Quixote didn't tell Sancho... Don Quixote wasn't like, you're going to battle with me and you're going to die along with me. No, he doesn't say that. He doesn't endanger his employees, so A is out. B, superior who needs looking after. I mean, yeah. Don Quixote is the master. Sancho is the servant. So it really works here. Skillful leader? No. Sancho's not following him, right? Pious man? No. The answer has to be B, and therefore the answer here has to be C. Okay? And that's it. I'm done. I don't have to keep going with this. I can just follow along with this. It's very, very simple and straightforward.